Okay, now I got it. Great. Okay, welcome to Mallets and Manuscripts July 2024 meeting. We've officially been doing this for a year now. Woohoo! 1 year anniversary. It was either last month or this month. So thank you all for being here. Today is a really exciting departure from, well, I guess maybe a departure, maybe not. But we're doing like a share session today. So a handful of folks have submitted kind of like what they've been up to these past couple months or what they're up to in the future. So we're just gonna share some of that, share some good news about folks in the group. And if you didn't necessarily submit to the Google form, but like you want to talk about what you've been up to or what your plans are for the immediate future, like we'd love to hear from you. Anybody want to go first? I've got some like YouTube stuff pulled up from those that have submitted, but you all should have the power to share your screen as well. So feel free to do that too. Anybody want to go? Don't be shy.
I can go.
Yay, Lewis.
Okay, so I am sharing, I'm gonna do my best to share my screen. I'm sharing a vibraphone solo. There's a little bit of an elaborate backstory, but it starts with this, which is a painting by Kandinsky, which is improvisation number 30, parentheses, cannons. You guys can see just like all the different cannons in here. I wrote a piece for Steel Band, kind of loosely based off of a Kandinsky a few years ago, like summer 2019. I just really like his stuff, and I really like abstract so-called art in general. And then I came across this painting of his later, and I was like, oh, cannons, like 1812, but also like the music term. It'd be funny if I did cannons based on cannons. And I kind of left it there for a while. I was just like sitting in the back of my brain. And then I did World Percussion Group earlier this summer, and Mike Burritt was the guest artist for that. And he wasn't there, but we played a bunch of his stuff. And a lot of his music, the vibraphone players are in canon, including on Mag 7. And I played Vibe 2 on Mag 7. And the Vibe 1 player, whose part I was playing one beat later the entire time, is also like a big art and Kandinsky fan. And so I pitched this piece to her as like one of those things that sounds like a joke, but I 100% knew that it was going to happen and meant for it to happen. And so this piece is 4 different sorts of canon for solo vibraphonist. So it's based off of the Kandinsky, but also just the Michael Burritt practice of vibraphone cannoning. So here's the score. And I need to make sure that I can scroll. Okay. So the first one is like a very straightforward canon. Since this starts off the piece, I thought it would be good to state the theme in these 4 bars and then layer in up an octave. But with the exception of these 4 bars, everything is just delayed by a quarter note. Until the very, very end, it compresses and goes in by an 8th note. But that's the first canon. The second one is lighthouses, and it's really about this bit of like this recurring like big B flat and F chord at the top, and then the idea of repeating notes, especially like this A and E, but repeating notes in a way that's maybe reharmonized and or dead stroked. And so by stating these pitches up here and then dead stroking like an F major 7 under it, you still have this B flat F ringing out throughout. And so it's this like different amounts of light kind of poking through fog. And then it ends with a dead stroke on those top notes, which is really fun. So you can leave the pedal down the entire time, which is a really fun way to write for vibes for me. Okay, third one is False Nocturne, and it's a bit of a red herring because you think that the canon is going to be like every note is double stroked, so every note is repeated, but actually all of these kind of like long 1 or 2 bar phrases, the top note, like the first note here, so that E, and then C sharp, and then A, B, F, is presented in the upper voice as well, and then those are in canon. So you have C sharp over E, A over C sharp, B over A, F over B, E over F, and then C sharp over E. And so it kind of loops through that way. And then the fourth one is canons on canons. And so this one is called Title Drop. And this is like as many different ways as I could make it work, like as many different layers of canon as I could have. And so there's this theme of like E, C, and both of those have like kind of little delays in the top voice. Then D, A, and it repeats 3 times on that pair of notes, then twice on that pair of notes, and then once. And then I kind of thought of it as like a tape delay in the lower voice, so like a bunch of E's, which do not line up with the rate of the top voice, and then a bunch of C's, and then a bunch of D's, and then a bunch of A's. So that's kind of like the big picture form. So it's these like multiple layers of canoning. And then there's a second theme of F to A to G natural to F sharp, which is kind of like an opposing, so like a second canon. This stuff repeats, and then that one where like the first voice has, or like the first canon has this tape delay motive, the second canon has a being in 3 different octaves motive. And then at the end, both of those are put together. So you have E and F in 3 octaves in contrary motion, and then A and C, and then D and G, and then A and F sharp. And so this is like an 8-note movement, and it's the most involved because it's just like a big tangled mess. And so that was like peak canoning for that one. So still work in progress, but I have a demo video that I took. I'm going to send this in for the Vibraphone project call for scores, which just got pushed to October 1st deadline from September 1st. So if you were thinking about submitting, you now have an extra month to do so. But this is like a little rough, but I can share, I don't know, Joseph, how we're doing on time. It's an 8-minute piece, so I could do bits of every movement,
Yeah,
like a minute or so.
Yeah, for sure. That works.
Cool. So I'll do like a minute of each of the 4 movements. And if there are wrong notes, no, there aren't. I should have I know I hit that note wrong. I should have paused it before then. Okay, here's the second movement. This is lighthouses. That's the second one. Here's False Nocturne. Scroll into it a little bit. So there's that one. And then the last movement is title drop. I'll go a little further in. And that's that.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you were submitting it to the vibraphone project thing, because that email went out this morning, I think, about the thing being pushed back. Yeah.
Yeah. I was planning on it. So the reason that I have that demo is because I was practicing and I needed to do like a practice recording session, because it's really easy for me to, especially when I'm playing my own stuff, to like not. I'm just like, oh, I know the right notes. I know that was the wrong note. It's fine. I know it. It's fine. So I did like iPhone takes of each movement 3 times in a row, and then I was like, ooh, I'm missing a lot of notes. So trying to get in the zone to like have a good recording for that.
Yeah, that's super cool. 3 times rule for recording.
And it's always the second take. The second take is always the one.
How much was pedaling, like figuring out pedaling stuff, like a challenge with the canon, like with just getting, I guess, the like, point of the musical canon across? Because like that, I imagine was somewhat difficult, or was it kind of idiomatic?
It was really difficult. I can show you to. So what I did was I hand wrote all of it in just like shorthand, and then didn't really do like any detail stuff. So I didn't do like dynamics or pedalings. And then after, I just like took it to school and was like, how do I make this work? And I wrote on it with pen. So I tried a few different things. Like, I feel like this one is really cheating because musically this should all be pedaled and this should all be pedaled, and you can't actually do that. This one makes sense with pedal down, which is part of the reason why I like it so much, is because it's actually like truly idiomatic. This one, I think, because of the nature of it, works well, and the fact that it's supposed to be like soupy and sludgy and spooky. This one I'm still like, I've gone back and forth on, and I was thinking about, like, there's a version of this where it repedals on the changing like underlying note. So like the first 2 bars pedal the low E, then pedal the low C, then repedal on the low D. And I'm not sure that this is like the final version too. I think what helps get across is like kind of half pedaling everything, so it never really clears, like the whole thing smudges a little bit.
Yeah, I always struggle when trying to, because I have a vibraphone at home here. So my place is a mess right now. And I always struggle like when I'm sitting down to write something for vibes, I'm like, how soon do I even think about pedaling, or like what am I like, when do I put it in, if at all? And I'm one of my teachers got really mad at me because he saw a piece I wrote and was like, Joseph didn't write in any pedalings. And I'm like, that's because like the instrument might change like how you're going to pedal something to begin with, like if you're playing on a really dry set of vibes anyway. But yeah, I just curious to hear your like process with that, so thanks for sharing.
I don't like writing in pedalings, but I increasingly feel like I should, or I have to. I also feel like this is one where it's possible for people to look at it and be like, well, this is impossible.
Yeah.
Like if it goes to an anonymized score contest, it's going to be one of those comment threads that's like, this composer doesn't know anything about percussion. So I'm trying to make it visibly like do some of the work to say like, I promise this is a thing that you can do. It's just sucks.
This is thoughtful. Right.
Yeah, no, like I know measure 52 is bad. Like I know that sticking is a nightmare. I think about it before I go to bed.
Hey, but there's some great canons out there for specifically like marimba that are freaking impossible to play because the stickings are ridiculous. Definitely not thinking of a particular 16-minute long Christopher Dean marimba solo. So
yeah, 21 minutes in, we've got our Christopher Dean mention.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, I've been gone for 2 months, y'all. I had to get the Dean reference in as soon as possible. So
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. And then also, this was not a commission and it's not under any exclusivity. So if you hate yourself and you want to play it, just hit me up. Score is free. I'm going to try and premiere it on a January recital.
Sweet. I was gonna say, I forgot to say this too, and I'm sorry if anybody else has any comments. I feel like I'm hogging the mic, but the second movement really reminds me of the do you know Adam Silverman's Marimba Concerto?
No.
Scott Herring premiered it when I was like a freshman at USC, and the second movement, the percussion ensemble version, this reminds me a lot of that movement, and in the way that like the stoppage of sound via the dead stroke. So I really like that second movement a lot. So
Thanks.
yeah. Cool. Well, thank you, Lewis. Does anybody else anybody have any other comments?
I've got a quick question,
Yeah.
notation question, as someone
Mhm.
who does not come from this side of the percussion world, who has never really touched a keyboard instrument and doesn't know how to do that. In the past, I've been told by percussionists like vibraphone is always one staff. And in the first movement, you used a grand staff. And I'm curious why that is and why not just compress them into one? Is it to make the cannons clear? Or was there a
Yeah.
different reason? And is that like harder to read notationally? Would it be like why choose to do that?
So the way that I think about it, and this kind of gets into my performer psychology, is if I see the whole thing on the page, I'm reading the counterpoint. And if I see the grand stabs and I see the alignment, really I know the points of alignment. I memorize the left hand part and I like sing the right hand part in my brain. And so it actually helps me focus and feel like I'm only playing half of it. Versus if I see like the entire thing, like stems down, stems up, I'm gonna like kick into marimba or piano brain and like try and play every single note, and it's gonna overwhelm it. And then also for like some of the counterpoint especially gets really close, like towards the end of the first movement. There's like some seconds that are happening, and just visually that would be a mess. So that's kind of what I was trying to avoid.
Makes sense.
I've
Yeah.
seen it too with Dave Friedman, his like jazz pieces for vibraphone that are completely written out. He uses a grand staff, and I think it's more for like he treats the left hand like it is like that bass player, so it's truly is separate from what's going on here in the right hand. At least like his Mirror from Another Book is like that. Texas Hoedown is like that. And as a vibraphone player, like it seems pretty easy to read that way. And I think they are like the left hand is in bass clef for some of that for his pieces, which is like that part is weird. I'm like, bro, just write this in treble. I might be wrong, but yeah.
Cool.
All right. Anybody else want to go next? We have a volunteer. If not, I don't mind jumping in here. So just got some quick updates for you guys on more so like upcoming items. I'm sure most of us on this call are PAS members, so you probably got the newsletter email this past week. Folks Percussion and myself were recipients of the Percussive Art Society's Zildjian Opportunity Fund, which is like a small grant program, yay, to support like essentially just the percussive arts in communities. I love all the emojis in communities that maybe don't have access to it. And Mackenzie, I'm sure you're going to share that, like what you and Hannah have been up to with that. For me, it's an upcoming event in November that me and the Fayetteville State University studio are gonna put together a what I'm calling a drum and tell event. So we're going to occupy the local arts center space, which if you're ever in North Carolina and you want a really cool art gallery space, it's very cheap to rent out for a long time. Fayetteville Arts Council is a great spot, and they're super nice. But we're gonna kind of just pull together a bunch of instruments and resources and do this like drum and tell event, followed by like a studio recital. My students don't know this yet, but they're that's what's gonna happen. And I'm really excited about it because I don't know that like my school has done much outside of like an international music festival in terms of like being out in the community and playing that's like not marching band. So I'm really jazzed to like have the students go and play like percussion ensemble music and some solo rep and a studio recital, but also, you know, send out flyers to all the elementary and middle and high schools and be like, come play on 16 different types of cymbals for, you know, 5 minutes because that's all you're allowed. But you know, to try out a bunch of things and kind of get to know the percussive arts. So I wondered like if you guys if I could use this as like a sort of forum, this kind of event, like the drum and tell side of it, what do you have any like immediate reactions or like thoughts of things that you would want to do or like see at something like that? Because you know, I don't want it to just be like a table of here are 7 triangles and 3 wood blocks. Like these are small percussion instruments. Like how to make something interactive and like fun. Because part of my vision is to have my 4 studio members like be like, okay, you are manning this table. Here's what you're going to talk about to these kids as they walk up. Here's how you interact. Yeah. Do you guys have any like thoughts or insight maybe?
I thought of this is very similar to an idea I had last year where I wanted to do something with food and music. And you know how like people like make ocarinas out of like carrots and all that. And like you could have like stations where like one of them, well, at least for this in this idea, you can do like scrapey sounds, you can do long sounds, short sounds, and like kind of divide it by different kinds of sounds or different kinds of yeah, just different kinds of sounds and teach them like, oh well, we're gonna make a group composition and based on the qualities of the sound. And yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
like
was gonna say this is like perfect for like any kind of Fluxus or text score kind of stuff. My Yoko Ono book is in my office, but the wood piece, the instructions are literally like make like play different pieces of wood and get different sounds by hitting them in different places.
I also have the direction score for flower pop music.
The Elliott Cole Flower Pop
Oh, yeah,
music.
I know that one. Yeah, that one's cool.
We also did something like this at Commerce called Drum Fun, which was percussion carnival, but we had carnival games. So it was like ring toss with drum hoops.
Oh my god.
Stuff. I don't remember exactly what all the events were, but if you want to, that might be like a little too field day.
I could email Brian Zader.
Yeah, I think it would be worth just kind of hearing out because I don't remember what all the activities were, but it was like outside in the amphitheater, and then the steel band played and stuff.
Cute. Yeah, we used to have like studio Christmas parties at Ohio State, and of course they happened during COVID for me, but the last one we had games like that where it's like doing I think one of the games is honestly like who could play a chromatic scale the fastest up at marimba without missing any notes. We're not doing anything like that because that sounds like a recipe for broken bars. But yeah, no, I like that. I like the idea of some sort of like fun element, and probably going to do like some kind of like door prize, like raffle thing. See if I can get like Fun fact, I'm now a education artist for Zildjian. You can't really see any logos, but this is a Zildjian t-shirt. And Vic Firth now too. So I'm probably going to try and get some door prizes from them and see what I can make happen. But yeah, no, I like that, the game side of it, and then the organizing by sound. I'm still like in the like planning stage as far as like, is this going to be a everyone comes in at a certain time and then I run the event like based on a schedule, or is it open and then there's maybe like one or two scheduled things? Like Benson, I like the idea of a group composition thing, or like, okay, everybody grab something from this bucket and we're going to do something together based off of this, I like that. So cool.
Just like bring a bunch of boom whackers.
I've wanted to buy some for a long time, so I think now is the time to purchase them. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the other thing that I've got going on there's a lot going on this fall. There's two more things. My old roommate from OSU is a trumpet player. We're going to meet up in Texas at UTRGV where he teaches and give a duo recital, play some pieces by our very own Josh here on the call. Super excited about that. That's going to be trumpet, percussion, and soprano sax. We're going to do a Joe Moore piece that I've never heard of before, but is pretty cool, it seems. And then handful of other things. I want to write a piece based off of, do you guys know the song Feels So Good by Chuck Mangione? Yeah, it's like kind of a meme in like trumpet land, I think. And a meme because I love King of the Hill is like one of my favorite shows of all time. And it's Chuck is in the show always, and he always ends up playing Feel So Good, even if it's like taps into Feel So Good. And me and my old roommate like laughed about that all the time. So I'm trying to write a piece for vibraphone and trumpet or flugelhorn that's based off of that, but it's not making much progress right now, but we'll see. Inspiration might strike again soon. Yeah. And then there's a handful of other pieces on that chart that are making me pull the rest of my hair out. But and then in November, Lewis and I, along with a bunch of other folks from North Carolina, are going to present at the North Carolina Music Education Association convention on accessible percussion ensemble repertoire. Yeah, I like super jazzed about that. Yeah, because I feel like it's going to be good for not only the people at NCMEA, but good for NCPAS to foster some community, because we really need that here. And I know that the exec board thinks that after a gig I had 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that's pretty much about it though. Life is good. So appreciate y'all's feedback and insight on the drum and tell thing. So we'll send you videos once that event ends up happening. November is going to be a crazy month. So sorry, my cat's going crazy on my bass drum right now. Anyway, next person want to share?
I can go.
Sounds good.
I don't remember what link I sent you. Do you have it?
Yeah, I have it pulled up. It's the Peaches Christ opening monologue from the International Pride Orchestra.
Yeah. So yeah, I got to do the Pride Orchestra again this year, but of course the videos are not out yet. But yeah, we'll watch a little bit of her opening monologue, but the main point that I want to talk about, or like kind of like point out about it, is it's kind of just like, I feel like it's a like a window into what classical concerts can look like. And yeah, it's just her opening monologue, and we all got to wear whatever we wanted, and all the composers or the music was written by like people on the LGBTQ spectrum. And yeah, it was just like a very, very fun time. Um, yeah, maybe let's watch it first, and then I'll present some more stories that happened this year that I thought were very funny.
Cool. All right, I'll share the audio and video, and Benson, you can just tell me when to stop. So,
Okay. Yeah.
all right.
Most essential person here today, without whom this event would simply crumble into cacophony. The legendary, the fantastic, the beautiful, the stunning, the glamorous, the gorgeous, the most amazing. Well, it's San Francisco's very own Peaches Christ! Thank you. Oh my God, that introduction was just so marvelous. I almost embarrassed me. I have to say, it was a little much, you know what I mean? Wow. Oh God. All right, I am so honored to be here in the presence of this fabulous ensemble. Now, let's get a look at them. Come on, stand up, musicians, one more time. These musicians have come from all over the world to hear San Francisco, the heart of the queer liberation movement, and where so many queer people have opened themselves wide to the possibilities of a more authentic life and some other things. I was so honored to be asked to be at this historic event, not only because it came with a free lunch, but also because I know that even in the performing arts, there are spaces that don't feel welcoming to so many of us. Orchestras are a world based on hierarchies. You know, having performed with the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra myself many, many times, yes, thank you. I can tell you that I know firsthand what it's like. You have to sit where you're told, only make a sound when allowed, get beaten into submission with some kind of stick. And this is all while a whole crowd watches the thing play out on stage. Oh, wait, sorry, that's just the after party at my Terror Ball show. But you get the idea. It's very much like that after party, and well, we all operate in systems created by others that limit how we can express ourselves. Everyone in this room knows what that feels like, okay? But here today, on this stage, you know, during Pride Week, with all of you in this room, we are claiming an expressive, musical, authentic space for us.
Okay, yeah, I think that's probably a good place to stop. Yeah, so it was just like a really, really well. Peaches is just really, really great with the crowd, and she can improvise very well, and her script was, of course, very, very genius. And it was just a really great way to a great window into seeing like exactly what concerts can look like in terms of kind of like letting the audience feel a little more at home and kind of like, okay, can I kind of like sit back in my chair a little more comfortably and just enjoy this concert. And another for that concert, the gemstone piece was Chike 4, and that was after the intermission. But before, she had like these little skits, and then she kind of did some interviews between pieces and all that. And then after the intermission, she's like, "So you might have heard a lot from me in this first half, but you won't hear from me a lot in the second half because this piece is 40 fucking minutes long." it was just like so funny. And then she was like, "So I'll see you guys in 40 minutes or whatever." It was just like really funny. So like this kind of like crassness that like it was just nice to see combined with a very usual stiff orchestra concert. And then this year, a funny thing was when we were doing the dress rehearsal, she read through her introduction, and then she was like, "And now for the Pride Orchestra." And then the conductor was like legitimately was like, "Oh, they have to tune first." And she was like, "What?" You know, like she like, literally didn't know that we had to tune, and she's like, "What is that?" And then, which is like, is I'm sure that is like an actual question that not frequent live music audience goers go to. And then so it was kind of cool for her to verbally say that, and then she made a whole, and then they were like, "Oh, let's make like kind of a shtick out of this." And then when they were tuning, she was like adjusting her tits and like her hair, and like just kind of like whatever. And it was like it was really really funny. And then and then after they tuned, it's just like, "Is that it?" Yeah. So it's just like this is fun. Yeah. So I think it was just cool to see that implemented, and it'd be cool to like see more MCs like run through concerts. And I think yeah, it'd be a really nice thing to see that would happen. Yeah.
How did you get involved in the organization to begin with? This is your second year. I've never heard of this event, so yeah.
Yeah, last year was the first one that has ever happened, and it was literally just a Facebook ad. Like those one random sponsored ads. They don't do a good job of marketing. For for being like a gay organization, they do not have their shit together. Like but somehow they're still able to grab a whole bunch of musicians, and they did it again this year. I will say that this year was a lot different in terms of vibes because it was in they're gonna try to switch cities each year. So this year was in New York, and yeah, I think with lots of differing factors, this year it felt a little more like everyone had their own things to do, but last year it felt a little more cohesive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool that like I love that the point that you want to talk about is that like it changed, like the concert experience was made more comfortable and more accessible to folks, because like that's, I don't know, that's something that I certainly encounter like with who I teach. Like my students are like, I don't understand like X, Y, and Z about like a concert experience. Or like, yeah. So I don't know. I really appreciate you talking about that, Benson. I also had that as like an assignment, concert etiquette as an assignment for my music appreciation students this summer. And like hearing their responses, I don't know. It's just reminds me of that. So yeah.
Right, yeah. It's definitely like turning those concert etiquette isms on its head.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was kind of like going to a club at the same time as watching Tchaikovsky. I don't know. Yeah, very interesting, very interesting combination. I will also say this year's performance was probably the worst personal performance I've had in a very long time. We did um there's Candide Overture, which everyone knows, but there's Candide Suite. I don't know, like there's not many recordings of it, if any, but there's the Candide Suite, so whatever. Anyways, I fucked up in both on Crash Cymbals, and if you guys don't know, there is a famous error in Candide Overture for Crash Cymbals. I don't know if y'all know that. So put a sticky note on that or whatever. Yeah. And because like the conductor was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" basically. And I was like, "I'm playing the music." And then the percussionists were like, "Oh, this is the thing. Like you have to know that this." Yeah, I don't know. The whoever copied the music or like engraved the music like completely did it wrong. So definitely score study for Candied Overture because it's literally wrong.
Who else was in the percussion section with you?
There's this guy. He went to Northwestern, but he does IT now. He does, but he majored in both.
Cool.
So I think he has two degrees. Then he's still living in Chicago. His name is Finley Lau.
Hmm.
And then this girl from San Francisco. She was just randomly in New York at the same time. Kristen Clare. Then I need to plug in soon. But this guy from MSM, Liam, but they ranked him in too because he was just there.
Cool.
And then Alana Wiesing. I don't know how is her last name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
Yeah.
So
consider doing it so that I can take a break between pieces.
That's so cool.
Oh yeah, of course. And it's not only, I mean, on their website it says that like it's open to everyone, like even LGBTQ allies. So it's not, you don't have to be gay. So yeah. They're thinking about, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Benson.
I was just saying they're thinking about DC next year, which apparently there's World Pride. I didn't know that there was World Pride. But it's going to be, World Pride is in DC next year, so they're going to try to plan for that.
Very cool. Benson, you just graduated too, right?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Woo.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Cool. Well, Benson, thank you for the updates. And always good to see you. And that's so awesome. So if you do it in DC, maybe does it happen in the summer every year, like in June, July?
Right. It'll always, they're always trying to lead it into the Pride Festival on the following weekend. The concert was on a Thursday.
Okay.
So they always like want the following weekend to be the Pride Festival.
Sick. I can maybe
so like June.
Maybe I'll try to convince my wife and all our friends to go up to DC for that and for the World Pride thing. I think that'd be really cool. So
yeah.
We could see you play. You'd be like, we have to go to this orchestra concert because my friend play.
Yeah.
He's the one sweating about his crash cymbal part.
Oh, bitch. Yeah. You just watch me, but don't listen to me.
Oh, cool. All right. Next person want to share? You guys you don't have to share if you don't want to.
I can share.
Okay, Mackenzie.
I'll just say, Vincent, I almost joined you, but it overlapped with Folk's percussion stuff. So I had to, they accepted me, but I had to say, sorry, no. It was big sad.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. Folks is so exciting, so it's okay. I'm going to share. I'm going to attempt to share my screen. I can do it. Got it? Okay. Oh, yes. Inception ensue. Just minutes going. Okay. Oh, yes. My Instagram is open. That's fantastic. God. Okay. Sorry, you're going to have Inception in the corner because I have to see your faces. This is the newsletter that I just put together for what Folks has been up to. Folks is my percussion group, and right now it's myself, Hannah, and then a friend from undergrad, Kendall Reimer. And so the three of us had planned to do this tour, which we got the grant for, which is super exciting. And then Kendall couldn't make it to Connecticut, but Hannah and I went to Neathnorth and played. So we did a little folk show within the Neathnorth space, which is what this photo is from. And then we've been busy because we went to Connecticut, but we're headed to North Carolina in a couple weeks, which is exciting. So we did. I had this bright idea to lay it out every month of the year so far, since we're halfway through the year of what Folks has done. So I'll just tell you what we've done. Hannah joined in January, and then in February we were invited by Dice Trio, which are these lovely humans, to join their album, and it's been pushed back every month since February. So hopefully, fingers crossed, it will happen sometime between October and next February, because those are the dates they have given us. After that, I think they'll just drop the project, which would be sad, but it's gonna happen in October, right? And then March was Women's History Month, of course. So I had a lot of features on my Instagram about that. And then April, we received the grant. And May, Hannah graduated, or not graduated. Hannah did not graduate. She finished her first year. And then Kendall and I had finished our first year out of school, which is exciting. And then June, we got together. So if it'll load, maybe I'll play a few seconds of this. See if I can skip to. Oh no, not my melodica solo. We cannot play that.
Wait, I want to hear melodica solo though.
No. You don't want to hear the melodica solo. It was really bad. It was supposed to be, I don't know if any of y'all have used Super Collider, but it was supposed to be like melodica processed through Super Collider, but then the Super Collider wasn't working, and then the speaker was also off. So not only was it not processing the sound, there was no sound anyway. So it's just me playing like these random notes that are supposed to be super processed. Just 7 minutes of me going, but, and then wait for like 45 seconds. It was great. It was absolutely epic. But here is one of the pieces. Yeah, it was great. Thanks.
No sound.
Oh no. Hold on, I can do this. Stop presenting. Also share tab audio. Yeah, that would be awesome. Oops. Really? Okay, it won't let me select a tab. Oh, is it because it's in a different browser? Hold on.
On the topic of melodicas,
Yes.
have y'all had experience like with better brands slash ones that are more in tune? Because mine's really not in tune. Like, because like,
Mine are both from the thrift store.
oh,
I know that sounds kind of gross, but we clean them.
oh,
And mine are also like ancient in that they don't have like the tube, and they're not like, they are a keyboard layout, but you can't play it like a keyboard. They are
oh.
playable like a clarinet or like any other wind instrument. So no idea.
Hmm.
Is it sad that I just happen to have mine sitting on my bed behind me?
Oh, mine's like right over here, and I'm about to grab it so I can show you.
What? Oh, look at that! Mine's right here too.
I love it.
Yeah, but this one's really it's not in tune, and if I want to like play with anything else, it's really bad.
Lewis, that's what I have. I have the Honor. It was super expensive, but it's in tune. So
Mm.
I don't think I played melodica for anything, but when we did Dave's interludes, those are the ones that we used.
Mhm.
Mm.
You might be able to open it up and like move the reeds around, like unscrew the screw and then move it and then re-screw it back in, which will change the tuning if you don't mind like doing some DIY project or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, surgery animal.
Surgery animal.
Thank you.
You just
Now?
slayed this.
We should have sound. Okay, tell me again if there's no sound. So that one is Emma O'Halloran's music for the small hours, which the exclusivity period just ended. So she should have that one to play soon, and I highly recommend it. Partially because I'm just obsessed with Glockenspiel, which is always a good time. And then the next piece that I want to show is, well, I think it starts right there. Ben Hausman from Matchstick wrote us a piece called Folklore that we got to play. So I'll play a few seconds of it.
Sorcerer's Apprentice who?
Exactly.
Yay.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm of course obsessed with Glockenspiel, so that's like the perfect part for me to be playing. It's great. And then that was the Connecticut Folk Show, and then Folks is gonna do similar program where it has those two pieces plus a Grace Coberly's piece and a couple other pieces in North Carolina in 2 weeks, and then Kindle will join us, and that piece by Ben will turn into a trio. So there's a third cajon part that we asked them to write, so that when Kindle joins us, we have all three of us play, which is exciting. And then, yeah, those pipe and Glock pieces are also turning into a consortium or turning into a production of sorts where we have Sashel, Kindle K. Williams, Guri, Josh, Ethan, Emma, Ben. So that's what, 7 composers that are writing us Glock and pipe-ish pieces that will just turn into a show in its own production of sorts. So that's what I'm working on.
Were
It's
you
really
using
amazing.
like the middle school band like bell kit? on that?
100%.
I love it. Like
Yes.
I'm a big proponent of that sound, and like still have mine in my closet. I've used it several times, but
Yes.
that piece is dope. I love that. Like are those your metal pipes or Hannah's?
Actually, let's see if I can share the should share the Instagram post that we made. There's a picture of Hannah and I sitting in the parking lot at a Lowe's making those pipes like the day before.
I was gonna ask, like, if you have a resource that you trust to make tuned metal pipes, if anybody does and they could send that, I need that. Malcolm, you've got
That would
one?
be awesome. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's a dissertation on threads that has all of the pitches, and I'll send that. I'll send that in a
Wait,
second. I'll
is
find
it Gordon Hickens' dissertation on
Is
threads?
it Gordon Hickens'
Is he
dissertation?
from Florida State, possibly?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my old teacher. I didn't know he had a dissertation. I knew he had a dissertation on threads. I didn't know that that's
I didn't know it was Gordon Hicken. He's like up here. He just moved from Taos and he's going to Ohio to Bowling Green.
Oh, really?
Or his wife is teaching at Bowling Green, and then he's doing a degree at Bowling Green.
He is. Oh, cool. Yeah.
Okay, I'll find that.
He was my teacher my first full year at South Carolina for drumline and like applied. He's the GOAT. Yeah, but should have asked him. I should have been sending him Facebook messages about tube metal pipes because that sound mixed with the Glock is like, oh, it's so good. Oh man. Where are you guys playing? Are you playing at Western? Or are you playing just outside of Western Carolina?
Yes, we're playing in Silva, which is just like the town over from Cullowhee where Western is, and then we're trying to plan a show in Canton/Asheville so that we're a little closer to anyone else that's not already in Silva. So yeah, we have Full Spectrum Farms and Innovation Brewery, the library, and somewhere else. There's a 4th show. There's a bookstore in town that's like queer friendly, so we're gonna play there.
Cool. There's I think they label themselves as like a percussion store, but they're mainly like percussion and like sound therapy store in Asheville. Any of you encountered this on Google Maps or anything like that in a trip to Asheville? That might be a place that you guys could check out if you're looking for somewhere. I tried to go like 3 days in a row, and they were like only open by appointment, but this was like 2 or 3 years ago.
I love that. I'd love to. I grew up in Asheville, so I feel like I should know about this, but I've never heard of this. So
yeah, and it might not exist anymore because it's been a long time. But I mean, when I tell you like there's like gongs and like tuned gongs and like real like African like dunes and djembes and all this other stuff just like in a storefront, and I'm like, let me in. Yeah, that's so cool. Dang.
Just a note on the pipes. Ben asked for like, I don't know, an octave and a half of pipes, which was crazy because we had to buy a lot of metal and cut that. But Emma Halloran's pipes are detuned. So it's like, I don't know off the top of my head. Hannah plays that part, so she knows, but it's like an A plus 41 or like a G minus 13. So she in the score like specifies this is how long the pipe is. So that was super nice to like, oh, okay, I know exactly what I'm doing. Whereas the normal set of pipes were really hard for us because we're like, I guess it's 26 inches, maybe it's 2 inches, I don't know. Lots of estimation there.
Do any of you guys know the Lou Harrison solo piece for tuned metal pipes? That what's his name that used to teach at Michigan that teaches at Joseph Gramley? He has a like mega produced amazing video of it. I can't remember what the piece is called, but it's like they're pipes that are tuned in like just intonation. So they're like the tuning and measurements are like absolutely wacky. And Gary from Nexus, Black Earth fame, Woodstock Chimes fame, he made an instrument for that piece. And I don't know if he made it for Keith Aleo, but Interlochen has it. I sent him an email about it and was like, do you have like the measurements, or like would you make pipes for this? And he just like was like, part of the piece is making your own pipes. Here's all the measurements and like the width and everything for this, but like you got to check it with the tuner. And I'm like, I'm a poor grad student, I cannot do this. But it's a really dope piece if you like tuned metal pipes. I'll find it and put it in the chat. So yes, it is solo for Anthony Cerrone. That's the name. Yeah. Which like what a name for a piece. I love it. Cool. So thank you, Mackenzie, for sharing. Anybody else? Treg V, Josh, Malcolm, you guys want to tell us what you've been up to? You don't have to if you don't want to, but
If we're just riffing, I'd love to share some stuff.
yeah, for sure.
So I just finished my first year of my master's degree at graduate school at the New England Conservatory. It's very different than undergraduate. So I have lots of odds and ends stuff that's like percussion meets like the rest of the classical world that I'd love to share. Two main things. One, just for my own enjoyment. And I also want to get your opinion on this. I started a somewhat on and off long-term project doing like some real theory work on the Stephen Mackey marimba solo See It Thursday, because a lot of that repertoire has not been touched by music theorists, and it makes me really upset because there's a lot of cool stuff in it. And so I just wanted to share some of my findings. So these are just some small graphs I have, but I wanted to show that Stephen Mackey, and that the famous opening with the roll, and then the roll trebles out is like the A flat and the B flat are kind of lined up. He's a jazz guitarist, so he's very into like minor thirds, major thirds, chords stacked in 4 scale degrees, and so they create some interesting structures where he's creating cohesion. And I just wanted to visually show that he says in these liner notes at the beginning that it like sputters and then it splinters, which I thought was like a really interesting way that he describes it, and then it reforms into that very famous kind of like thing that we all know from the solo, like that da 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 bum ba-dum bum ba-dum. And so some of my research was dedicated to trying to figure out like theoretically what that means. Like, and I think I got somewhat close. You can just ignore some of the heavy stuff unless you're into some of the heavier theory type stuff, but I represented the red and the green boxes as these two types of planes he's creating with the harmony, and you can see he like intermixes them with all of the kind of randomness where he's kind of that moment where he's like in between the trills or the tremolos where they're starting sputtering and being written out as like actual rhythms. And he takes the verticalness of it and sputters it around, and then it becomes horizontal, these horizontal lines. And he does, I'll spare you some of the details, but he kind of messes with how things are done in terms of moving these different boxes around. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that because it's very interesting how I didn't know that going in when he was talking about the splintering and stuff. Like, I'd played the solo before, but I didn't know that like that had a very direct application to like how the theory was working out in that. And so I thought that was really interesting visually to show and just get some feedback on what people's thoughts are on like whether that's like intentional or any other percussion repertoire that has stuff like that in it. Cause it was very like interesting. I don't know that was like there. Not that there's really anything to say about it, but
I think
I
that's a good
have-
question. Oh,
Go ahead.
the Mexican standoff.
All right, I call on Lewis.
Okay. I have two thoughts about this. Have you looked at Dave Hall's dissertation on the piece?
No, I have not.
There's some fun stuff in there. I think it mostly does not overlap with the stuff that you're doing. It's also like a pretty quick read, but he talks a lot about like the three-dimensionality and kind of like a cube form in the piece. But the other thing is, I wonder to what extent you think the harmony is, I don't want to say important, but like how much the harmony is the point of that piece. Because I feel like I like the harmonic analysis, but I feel like a lot of the cool things that happen are a result of harmony, but maybe not like I'm not saying that you're doing a Roman numeral analysis of it, but I think of, because I teach the theory class, I think of like all of the ways that harmonic analyses can go wrong or like miss the point. So I wonder kind of what the next step would be with doing all this, if that makes sense.
Well, the point of this was for like a harmony class, like a post-tonal harmony class. So the whole point was to analyze the harmony from not like no rhythm or tempo or the form or anything. It was more just to see how he's organizing amidst all of these other things that he's using to control the music, how he's using the harmony to compound those ideas. If I was doing like a full one, I would expand way beyond just looking at like the literal notes. But it was interesting because it was a lot of the tools I was using to apply to that were taught in a way that they were coming from, like, we had done like a lot of Messiaen and things of that nature in that class. And so I was like, oh, what if I took that approach? Because every percussionist ever, I'm sure, has like taken the approach of like rhythm and like the large scale forms and some of that sort of thing. And so I was kind of interested in like peeking under and looking at this other side, but it's just like a little start of something. I was just interested if that sparked anything. And yeah, I would for sure go like way in the other direction if I was going to do like a comprehensive thing.
I was just curious.
Yeah. Yes, the answer is that is a good idea. And then yeah, other than that, I had just been working with Alyssa Weinberg a little bit in New York. I went to a festival she was in charge of, and I worked with a cellist named Gabriel Cabezas. Of like, he has this quartet called Owls, which is a string quartet, except they have 2 cellos and 2 violins, so they just don't have a violist, which I think is really funny. And then he's been doing this project with Alyssa called like Pieces of Light. That's very much about an extension of some of the stuff she was doing at Princeton, where it's very like noise based. And I loved listening to her talk about her non-percussion music. I thought it was super interesting because she's very much about kind of like how to put these noises these different kind of fields of noises together to create almost like more of a painting rather than anything very like specific. And it was, she went to the Curtis Institute of Music, and then she went to Princeton immediately after. And so she had this unique perspective where she was talking about, I think she talked about this piece that she made, the Copeland House, that was dedicated to Sariaho, because she just, or in memoriam Sariaho, because she just died like a week earlier. And I wonder if I can bring it up because it's actually a really interesting piece. It's in French, so I will not even attempt to pronounce it. I know it seems like I'm selling Weinberg's music, but her approach. Is there a way I can just share sound? Is that a thing?
I don't think so, because you have to like share a tab, but like you could share your screen and then like navigate away from the. Yeah, I think my answer is going to be no, but I probably am wrong.
It'll be fine. We'll go with it for now. Prepare for Inception one more time.
Whoa!
Whoa! Yes.
Holy.
Let me know if you can't. No.
Thumbs down.
Okay. What about this? Yeah, cool. So yeah, and she talked about starting with like a concept of the sound she wanted and building downwards and putting her abstract idea of the sound into the instruments. And so there's a bunch of composers on here, and also like everyone composes, everyone's a composer, especially on this call. So I was wondering if I could field some ideas about how people think about, if you've had experience composing for non-percussion instruments and how that informs like your writing for percussion. And I think that could be really interesting to talk about. And I wanted to pose this question for a while because I've been struggling kind of with like reconciling these two worlds exactly, but just different people's approaches or how they have seen it work or not work, or just how people think about it in general. Way too open-ended.
This is just like a very, very specific example that I don't I don't know exactly what the technique is, but you know how like when string players do the like the arpeggiating, like that's very much like when I hear that, I of course like hear sticking as well. So like I was like so that's like the only thing that really pops into my mind that's like very um has a really big correlation in my head.
Interesting. I always think of like string players doing that, but that's like when you go to a piano and you play the tuning of a guitar like on like at pitch on a piano, and it like sounds like you can kind of get that in between feeling where you're like, oh, this kind of sounds like a guitar almost.
I was just writing a piece for orchestra, and it was supposed to be a fanfare, which like is really not where my musical comfort zone is at all. Like it's just not the vibes I wanted at all. I was trying to do like a 7-minute introspective, like autumnal vibe, and I was like, yeah, let's do like a 3-minute like brass fanfare. I was like, okay. But I think what helps me get into thinking about instruments that are not percussion is kind of reverse engineering it. So like in the whole first suite, first movement, when the snare drum and trumpets go, like that's one of my favorite percussion writing moments in large ensemble ever, because it's just like so musical and tasteful. And so I was like having a hard time coming up with fanfare stuff for winds. And I was like, oh, what if I just do like write a nice little fanfare thing on snare drum, and then instead of like trumpets have this fanfare and snare drum doubles it, it's basically like snare drum has this fanfare and trumpets add pitch. So I think I spend a lot of time just like going path of least resistance, and if it's a natural like percussion idea, I'll try and do that and then orchestrate it as closely as possible, which I guess is kind of the same thing that Weinberg does of like sound first, execution after. But yeah, also to what Benson was saying, the steel pan quartet that I wrote uses like that exact open string tuning, but it like instead of going like in the very directional that you have to because of the bow movement, it kind of just like bends and turns it around. And that was like, again, like kind of memeing off of string quartet writing and the way that I feel like a lot of people learn about strings, is like intentionally trying to subvert that through a directional shift.
Interesting.
I like that.
Oh,
I
sorry.
like sorry. I like the snare to trumpet idea and flipping that on its head. And then when you said that, it reminded me of like Shostakovich's like xylophone writing, because like it's really really amazing like that he incorporates xylophone like a lot in his symphonies, but not in a I don't like I guess it is still colorful way, but like in particular when I think about Shostakovich, I think like just his really nice xylophone and piccolo writing, and it's always like at the precisely the right time to really emphasize what's going on. So maybe you could think about it also like and take Lewis's idea and flip that on its head, and instead of maybe thinking of xylophone and piccolo as color instruments, you think of that as the main instrument, and then the other part as color instruments.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, because I was thinking about I wanted to write repertoire almost in large ensemble where the percussion parts were like more independent. And I know that some people have mentioned that before that I've talked to, but it seems like there's still like a real resistance amongst a lot of composers who are like not percussionists to even like allow that to happen. And it seems like I've always been told like, oh, in orchestras, they're not going to have like time to rehearse that, or they're not going to have like, they're going to have to pay for more people to do it or whatever. And so it's been kind of like a weird like back and forth on like I want to write these really independent percussion parts and make it shine, but also like ensemble it seems there's like a resistance to that sort of writing. I don't know.
I want to push back against that kind of language in particular because I think it ignores two aspects that you have working towards you. One is depending on the orchestra. If you're writing orchestra music and you're writing for it to be played, as long as you're giving clear parameters by the group that you're writing for, like you have timpani +3 or you have timpani +4, or like we don't have a 5-octave marimba, but we can get a 4-octave, then you don't need to worry about that. And also, orchestra music is so hard to break into the scene anyways.
Yeah.
I don't think that like a fourth percussion part is going to be the thing that stops you. I think like you not being 300 years old is going to be the thing that stops you. The other thing too, on the like percussionists aren't going to want to like an involved part, like someone isn't going to want to be able to learn that, or like they're not going to have time to rehearse it. I feel the same way about it that I do about Vignau's percussion writing, which is that if you study it as like, oh, you can write literally anything on marimba, you can write really crazy involved stuff, and you can write polyrhythms and all this, like that's maybe missing the mark. And it's more like if you play through it and you noodle through it really slowly, you see that like it works in exactly this way. And if one thing shifts down a step or over a 16th partial, then like everything falls apart. But the intricacy of how it's put together to me is the point, and the way that it then like puts together like hand to hand within one player, person to person in an ensemble setting. I think since you have a percussion background, you can trust yourself to write interesting and possibly complex things that are going to wind up really effective and idiomatic, because like you could write a big like 4-tom cadenza part that actually is like really comfortable because it's based off of like rudiments and stickings that you know, and it's not like a big crumbled mess that is the meme that like the boomers in orchestral percussion talk are complaining about when they're like, oh, this person definitely doesn't know anything about percussion.
That's fair. A lot of the repertoire I've been thinking about were things like this David Lang piece called Man Made that So had done like a while ago. That's like the kind of repertoire that came to my head when people would like say that stuff too. And I was like, well, there's like really cool like idiomatic stuff that like features kind of like what So is really good at, and like by proxy kind of like the language we use when we're composing or playing. Not that I want to make that piece, but like that's like an interesting like area of repertoire to explore.
Yeah, I think some of it too is just like still kind of regressive percussion bias of like percussion can be this one thing, and it is a cymbal crash and a triangle hit and loud timpani.
Woo. Yeah.
Are you like cautious of, so it's like one of the points that you're dealing with, like being cautious of like writing something that's just like ungodly hard that someone's not gonna want to learn, or like not idiomatic?
It's a little bit of both. Sometimes it's dipping into like, I play percussion, but I'm also a composer, so I want to like experiment a little bit with like what pushing the bounds of what you can do while still kind of trying to remain mostly an idiomatic. And I feel like sometimes in like solo and chamber writing that's possible, and maybe that's just like the deal of reality. But sometimes when you get in a large ensemble, mostly orchestra, band, I feel like they're a little bit more like cool with some weird stuff, as long as it's not flash trash, as I've been told.
Yeah.
One weird thing on that too is I feel like a lot of the resistance that is, again, like not to bash on the comment section of orchestral percussion talk, but it's like this part is really hard and it will not be heard over or through an orchestra, which I am somewhat sympathetic to. Like I played Danzón on a gig a couple weeks ago, and I like learned the vibe part, and I practiced really hard to not hit wrong notes, and then it was not audible from the audience. Even though I was going as loud as I could with my hard mallets and still hitting notes. So I feel like, again, like the instances of less thoughtful percussion writing give all of it a bad rap, because bowed vibraphone can be heard in an orchestra if you just orchestrate around it well, or like pitch bent crotales dipped in water or something. Like the sounds are there, and you just have to make them a priority.
That's fair. I have more stories, but I won't say them here. But yeah, I've heard a lot of, I've heard things all the way up to like in a reading once they were like, you put mezzo forte on the snare drum part, they're not gonna know what to do with that. And I was like, I don't think that's true.
I feel like I like to be presented a challenge. Now, I'm not like an orchestral percussionist for my day job, but like being presented like nor do I ever want that to be my day job. But like I enjoy being presented like a challenging part that requires an absurd amount of like, well, maybe not absurd, but like brain power, like stickings. And I feel like especially with like knowing that it's like something new and like there's something about like the creative process that is made extra like fun for me as a player. If I know that, not even necessarily being like a premiere, but like, oh, this is like brand new, no one's really heard this before, like I'm a part of that process, that like makes slogging through a so I played with the Carolina Ballet this past year, just literally for one show and two rehearsals, but I had to learn the entire book for the second percussion part. And there's a Glock solo in it. Shout out Glockenspiel. That is completely on its own. It's a flute part that was then put on Glockenspiel. And it is at like 120 in triplets. I'm getting to it, I promise. I can't remember what page it's on. Actually, I have it on my iPad. What page is this? This is page 59. So let's go to 59. Yeah. So it starts here. It's piano, but it's all by itself, right? And it kind of repeats, but as you can see, I had to write in so many GD stickings. And it was super exposed and super tonal and like drove me crazy when I was practicing it. But quite honestly, like in the context of playing it on the gig and like playing it in the ensemble, not with the MIDI recording, like, well, one, I got a lot better at Glockenspiel just from learning that, but it was like ended up being really gratifying to see how many right notes I could hit because it was never 100%. But I don't know. There's like something about it where it's like I enjoyed that challenge because it was so a solo moment, like exposed. Yeah, it was difficult, but it wasn't like difficult from like a in the moment kind of like brain processing and timing. It was more just like this is a fun little execution test that I just need to conquer. And sometimes, at least me as a player, like I really enjoy being presented something like that. Because it reinvigorates like me like being a performer and being a musician, right? If everything you get is if I'm going to complain about this Glock part and only want to play isolated hits with the winds or brass, then I'm just going to end up complaining about that. Like, why am I getting called in to do 4 services and all I do is play whole notes? It's like, well, would you rather, oh, cute kitty. Would you rather have this like crazy hard Glock part that like you have to shed a bunch, but it's like a really cool moment of music and you get paid the same amount of money? Or would you rather just play like whole notes for 4 bars and then be bored out of your mind? Like, I'd rather be challenged somewhat because then there's, and again, there's other parts in this that were like so easy, but I don't know. I'm rambling, I know, but that's my 2 cents.
That's really good to know for me though, because there's a very different perspective where I go to school. So it's really nice to hear all the different like schools of thought that are.
Yeah, and I mean
floating.
there's like a point where like you meet in the middle, right? You don't want everything can't be like balls to the wall, like super hard, right? Or 4 mallet Glock and vibraphone parts for all, but like it's your composition, like do what you want to do, and someone is getting paid to play it probably, so that's up to them to figure it out. And if it's truly unplayable, they'll send you a nasty note about it. So
That's fair. I want to avoid the nasty notes, but yeah, cool. That's all I have to share, really. I have some other miscellaneous projects and stuff, but nothing to show.
well, we appreciate you sharing. So thank you. Yeah. Josh, Malcolm, you guys want to add anything or share anything or?
I can be really fast. I feel like I'm kind of like split brain sometimes, and I'm like I have a like what I'm doing myself and what I'm doing with other people. So I guess what I wanted to start with what I'm doing for myself. So I guess a bit of background. I just finished my first year of my DMA at George Mason University, and with my scholarship, I kind of just do my dissertation as I go throughout the 4 years. So this year, I kind of like developed my like overarching topic that has like taken a lot of I guess like mental thought between trying to formulate a topic and then formulate a question around it. Right now, it's Afrofuturism in concert percussion, which is I feel very cool. This like science fiction in the I guess how I'm defining it, it's science fiction in the Black American experience, and that's influenced by the Black American experience. And so currently I'm kind of just like collecting pieces, putting in a database for percussion and electronics, and it could be solo percussion, really ensemble, anything that includes percussion and electronics, up to like 13 players total, keeping it chamber music so I don't have to go through band music. Not that there's a lot of band and electronics written by Black composers. But yeah, very like just collecting pieces right now and formulating a question later somewhat. I've had to redefine Afrofuturism for myself, because then talking to people, they're like, as all artists are, don't put me in a box, I guess, which has felt very morally like strange on my end, because I'm trying to be like, I just like your music. I just want to talk about it in my dissertation a little bit, but I like completely understand that people don't want to be put in a box with it. And yeah, so that's like me right now. Very just collecting things, looking through. I had to redefine my like scope a little bit and say that it is I could call it Afrofuturism, but it's kind of like Black cultural and musical experimentation. So it's things like avant-garde jazz with the AACM out of Chicago. I gotta remember the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians, and it could even include things like Julius Eastman's organic music. Very like broad right now. Hoping to within this next couple of weeks of summer, collect it and make it so I have something to go through while I am going through the second year. I guess my one thought is, if you have any pieces that would fit this music by Black composers that feature electronics, I would love to hear it, and just kind of, if you know anything.
I have a thought, and I also have a question for the group, because you guys are plugged into steel pan land. Did any of you like a few years ago check out the Andy Akiho's like project and the chamber group he had with the poet? I can't remember what the Miyamoto is Black Enough. Do you guys remember this?
Yeah.
The album is like not on Spotify or anything anymore. And Malcolm, I bring this up because there's like it was like him, a drum set player, a cellist, and a poet, and it might be up your alley. I think there's certainly some like electronic elements to at least how the voice was processed. But there is like an intersection, obviously, with like Andy just like took a bunch of his pieces from his album, like the No One to Know album, and like redid them for this context. It's really incredible. When I talked to him at PASIC a couple of years ago, he made it almost sound like something not good happened as a result. Like I don't remember what happened where the project like no longer exists and you can't find the recordings, but might be a cool avenue to check out. Yeah. Do you guys know about this group at all when it came out? Benson, you do? Yeah.
Yeah, they toured I don't know how many cities, but they came down to Houston when they did it. And that's what introduced me to Akio's pan stuff.
Yeah.
I'll write the name of the poet. His name is Roger Bonaire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely like it was about every piece was a different part of the Black experience, but also kind of just the American experience too, of like crazy gentrification, especially in Brooklyn, because I think Roger's like a Brooklyn. He's lived there for a while, but I don't think he was born there or whatever. But it was very much both the Black experience and the American experience for each poem. Man, yeah, and it is a really big shame that because the album was on Spotify, you can look it up, but it won't play anything. It'll just kind of be like grayed out.
Yep.
And I think I remember like trying to set an inquiry like, well, can I like buy the CD or something? And just didn't really get any answers. But I'm sure you can try again.
There's a live concert that they did in March 18th of 2018 at the Kennedy Center that I just put in the chat. To give you a taste of it. Might be something to look at. But again, I don't know how like the fact that, yeah, like I said, Andy talked about it and it made it sound like maybe there's like a falling out or something. It's like,
Yikes.
Yeah, so I don't know how that would play into your project, Malcolm, but yeah.
Yeah, I'll check that out. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Did you want to?
Oh, there's the hi, I'm Alex. I've been just kind of fly on the walling over here doing some work. But I think that's a super cool project, Malcolm. And the first thing that came to mind was we saw their Ghost last year, and they have a project with Flutronics and Natalie Joachim. And they do like several versions of it. Like Flutronics has a duo version where they like play with the percussion track. Third Coast has a percussion version where they play with the flute track, and then they have a live with like the whole crew. And I know Natalie Joachim does a lot of cool chamber stuff that frequently incorporates percussion. I'm just a big fan of hers. So that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and you might already have Derivative on the list. But that was kind of one of the first ones that jumped to mind. Also, this is a little ancillary, but do y'all know the Stefan Harris album Urbanus that came out in like 2009? Yeah, August 2009. The Casey Benjamin, rest in peace, vocoder cover of They Won't Go When I Go by Stevie Wonder on that album. It's like you could pitch it as chamber music, jazz, vocoder, and keyboard percussion. It's mostly just like a really good recording that I think everybody should listen to. But that one is really good. I can put that in that album Wikipedia page in the chat too.
Sweet.
Have you
so much.
Have any of you seen The Last Angel of History, the documentary from 1996 on Afrofuturism in music? Should maybe check that. It's I don't think there's any mention of like percussion specifically, but there's I can't describe it super well. It's only 45 minutes long, but
Is that the Sun Ra journey?
It's a different movie. So the Sun Ra, I just had to Google it because I couldn't remember the name of the history. There's a Sun Ra movie, I think, called Space is the Place. And The Last Angel of History, Sun Ra is in it. But it's also got, who else was in it? It's all based off of, the film uses concepts based on George Clinton's Mothership Connection and features Clinton, Derek May, Samuel R. Delaney, Octavia Butler, DJ Spooky. That was the name that it was escaping me that I knew, and makes mention to Sun Ra. But really cool film to check out. That's at least related to your topic. It could lead you in the direction of musicians to check out or something. But my wife is a film studies person, so we watched this late on a Wednesday night one night, and I was like, "Whoa, this blew my mind! It was amazing." So, and on that note, like putting people in boxes, like I think, like it's always good to be like careful of those kinds of things when you're talking about genre, especially. I've been reading. She's in her dissertation writing phase right now, and she's writing about feminist body horror movies, and just wrote about like her chapter she's working on right now is on Jennifer's Body, if you guys know the Megan Fox film, and like talking about that in relation to like the teen film and horror films and the intersection there. But like while like a film or a piece of media, like you're always like playing with different generic conventions, even if you have this like broader like, no, I am this or I don't want to be this. It's like, yeah, but you like play in that sphere, you know, like Jennifer's Body is like a teen film as well as a horror film as well as like a camp masterpiece, you know, for instance. Yeah.
Just while we're on the subject of being nerds, a couple of other books. So Alex is teaching a history of American music class for the first time this coming semester, and so our windowsill is just like filled with books about American popular music history. Kind of included. I don't know if you have anything off the list that jumps out at you.
This one's much. I don't know if anyone's heard of this. This is a little bit more like, well, it's very much more like popular music oriented rather than
like concert
percussion, but it is really insightful. And this author also, I'll hold it closer to the camera. It's really good. It's a lot of short essays about pop and hip hop and rock music. And he also has a book about of essays on sports as well. And he has a lot of stuff about like the intersection of like Black culture and sport culture and hip hop culture. And he's also like a really big Carly Rae Jepsen fan, and like talks about just like is a really good author for talking about all of the intersections of things in like modern popular music culture. So
I'm gonna
like I
type
said,
it
a
in
little
the
more
chat.
pop music oriented than some of the other stuff we've been talking about, but it is a really good read in general.
Yeah. Also, doesn't Questlove have a book?
Questlove has a few books. Yeah.
Yeah, I just finished the Jay Dilla biography, which I thought was very, like, towards the end, it started to become like this, oh, this is about my topic, talking about music history and music technology history. And then I just got his other book, Questlove's book, Hip Hop is History. So now I'm like gonna start that whenever I get through my one academic book that is Afrofuturism and music.
Yeah. The other piece that I think is a really interesting, like kind of wedge in this is like Boom Bap by Nick Worth. Do you know this one?
Yeah.
I think that kind of gets into questions about, because we could say that like produced music and hip hop drumming and sampling is all kind of outside of a sphere of concert percussion with a lot of like a very porous boundary, but a wall that some people would draw. And I feel like a Tap Space published percussion sextet is kind of drawing that in, and then all the things that come with that music then just being like notated. for example. I don't know, a lot of thoughts, but
Who else have you like who have you're mentioning like compiling a database, like who in like the sphere of like concert percussion have you already kind of put in this database or this list that you're creating?
So I have I have like a couple. So George Lewis, I think, is at kind of the top of that, and he discusses Afrofuturism. He just doesn't. I don't think he defines himself as one. Makes sense. A little bit. There's Nicole Mitchell, Yvette Janine Jackson, Che Buford recently has been a student of student of George Lewis that I've come across. Pamela Z, the Honorable Elizabeth A. Baker, Ollie Wilson, and both members of Flutronics as well. And then Kevin Day is writing his opera Lalababi for the Cincinnati. I'm gonna say that, and then I'm gonna double check myself. Cincinnati Opera. Whoa, look at that, Malcolm. You did that.
The recall.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to get in contact with King Britt, who is a producer, and he also does Blacktronica at UCSD. Like, it's all Afrofuturism and electronic music. So it's very parallel in the thoughts. And then I split up my repertoire into like works that incorporate technology, that are inspired by technology, and then things to arrange. And so inspired by technology is like the Devonte Hines Fields, is it? And Perfectly Voiceless, and Derivative, the Jalen. So very like, again, every time I kind of talk about this, I feel like I'm very boom, boom, boom over here, but I feel like that's where I'm supposed to be. So that's like,
that's super cool. Yeah.
Just to throw out one more name, Keegan Fountain has a lot of like vibraphone and projection, and I believe has a bit of a sci-fi vibe, right? I feel like you.
Oh yeah, he has like a whole vibraphone solo that's like a story of a child going into space, and it's very poppy and fun. But I know he also does some stuff with electronics as well.
yeah, he's come up on my list a lot recently. So,
and some sick anime covers on vibraphone.
Love it. I don't know if you probably have Jerron Brown on there too. It's some of his pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you need to get in contact with him, I have his number if you need it. He's an old friend. So
yeah, but very, very large right now. That's just that's personal research stuff, which I'm like excited to keep going with. And then I don't want to take up too much more time, but I think that's it for right now.
Cool.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate
Malcolm,
you sharing. Yeah.
Real quick, Malcolm. One more. Have you looked into John Dye Braxton at all? His music?
A little bit.
I know he does, like, he really loves electronics, especially kind of mixed with percussion. He did a thing with Third Coast. I think the piece is called like Sunny X, I think.
Yeah.
But he's really interested in like electronics plus acoustic and like the interactions there. So I like his stuff. It's good.
I will check him out. Thank you so much.
Cool. Well, appreciate all of you sharing. We'll be in touch about details regarding our August meeting, which should be on August 11th. Oh my God, that's not quite my first week of classes, but it's approaching fast. But great to see all of you, and thank you for being on the call. And if anybody is watching this retroactively on the recording, thank you as well. I'm going to go ahead and shut off the recording, so we'll see you guys in August. All right.